Hello, everyone. This is our 10th community call. And today is a continuation call on an earlier call that we did on VectisDAO design. I'm just going to give a quick summary of what we talked to the last time so that you can get the picture of what we're going to be talking about today. So we decided to use DAO platform to design our DAO. And in order to do that, we had to specify a few parameters. For example, total number of tokens, or proposal deposit amount, or length of voting time, and so on and so on. And in order to do that in a good way, rather than just guessing, we decided to do a bit of research on those parameters and how that would affect our system, and basically wanted to come up with the best possible values for our project. So we went through all DAOs that we could find, and listed the parameters that they've chosen, and read through some feedback and analyzed what was out there, and then came up to our own parameters that would then helped us calculate. I'm sorry, this is my internet is slow. So if you run this, the price of Juno would just fall in here, and then the attack vectors would calculate. So the idea of this was to come up with the parameters for the DAO, and then we can use user growth that we talked about as well, in order to predict, for example, how our governance would evolve, or how secure our platform is, and when are we going to reach decentralization, and so on and so on. We also went through how we got our user growth function. We used Etherscan to get Ethereum's active accounts, and then we scaled. Averaged. We did a mean average over rolling average with scaled factor, because we just want to see, for example, how our attack vector and our decentralization would be affected by different maximum number of Vectis users. So we tried with 10,000, with 100,000, with 1 million and 10 million, and just had a look at this is the user growth curve. So we basically specify the date, and if we grow with the same sort of curve as Ethereum, and in a scaled way, so less users than what they have, how we would evolve. And that was where we left it last time. And from then onwards, we continued our discussion on how to design our DAO in the best way. As we said in the previous call, designing a DAO is quite a complicated and evolving process. So there's a lot of research that is currently happening, and a lot of people are experimenting with DAOs. So there are a lot of new ideas coming in, and we want to be on top of that. So we expanded our research into DAOs that are not just DAO, but are also used in other platforms. So we went through some articles on the DAO design, for example, on Uniswap, on Aave, MakerDAO, and basically some of the biggest ones out there on the Ethereum network. And we came up with discussion points that we found were kind of a common problem, or a common issue that users and also researchers and people who have helped designing these DAOs have struggled with, and best practices that we can hopefully follow as well. So what we want to do is actually like look into the future, and hopefully we will be at that size someday. So we want to know like that size, I mean, like a big DAO with a lot of users. So we want to know what sort of challenges do they face. So we want to be prepared and build in a way that we anticipate what it will be like to have a lot of users. So we, after the like defining of the parameters that we did last time, we also thought of the income on the DAO. So we of course want to, like, we build open source, so we want VectisDAO to be a sustainable project that is healthy and builds everything that is built in it. It kind of has the same narrative and enhances the healthiness of the platform, and creates a sustainability loop in the project. So we were thinking of how income is generated in projects like Vectis, and we did a like quick research into different other different wallets, just to have a look at how much funding generate, for example, or if they had some good practices that were like missed on, and it was actually quite interesting to see, like, some of them were privately funded, some of them were relying on swap fees. We saw that there was a tendency for the ones that were more like privately owned, privately funded, had more partnerships and no fees structure, whilst the ones that were open were relying more on swap fees. But yeah, there are some great projects out there that we basically want to have a look around and see some best practices from there. Yeah, and we were looking to how to design our dashboard, and what would we want to have on it. So, like, in general, what we want for VectisDAO is for the users to have absolute clarity on what are our goals, what is happening, and how can they take part if they want to. We want it to be as little confusing as possible. So we want, when someone logs in, to be able to see where how is the DAO getting income. So, for example, now when you buy Vectis, your money will go into the DAO. So you have that visually. We want to have that visually on a dashboard, and when we have teams or people who find proposals and have their projects that want to be funded by the DAO, we want that to also be clear from the dashboards. And yeah, so going through what we want on the dashboards also led us to going through other projects and see what is out there as ideas, and kind of separate the ones that we really would like to have. Yeah, and so as I said, the most important thing for us is to create a project that is self-sustained, a project that encourages other people to participate in order to bring more users and make it as healthy as possible. So whilst we're thinking about that, we generated like a sustainability loop diagram, just to make sure that everything fits in. So I hope you can see the diagram. Yeah? Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Yes, we see it.
Yeah, so we're currently in the initial phase where the core team is doing the bulk of the work. And then, as I said, we build open source. So VectisDAO is going to start building up funds and treasury. that in turn will hopefully attract more developers that would be building more tools, and those tools will be attracting more users. And for us, having more users obviously means higher revenue, which is going to bring it back to the VectisDAO for that part of the loop. And then higher user base, of course, also attracts other projects, which would come in through partnerships, and having those partnerships would give us more ideas onto things that we can grow in the DAO with more proposals, and then again attract more developers, and we loop through. So this is what we want our sustainability loop of Vectis to look like, and hopefully create a healthy environment for everyone to take part in and build what they think is valuable. And in that design, we also thought of like the questions that our governance wants to answer, and key points that we think our governance should focus on. And we created a table of the different stakeholders, and what would they give to the platform, and make sure that the platform also gives something back to them, so that there is this correspondence of incentives, and make sure that if someone would not be put off of taking part in the project just because they're not paid for their work. And then we thought of some possible models, and how those would answer some of the like crucial problems out there for in the like our design community. Yeah, so that was our like initial sort of design, and in all of that we were thinking about the dashboard, and we're thinking about other projects, and the things that we decided we really like to have through like reading through DAO material. We actually found a lot of really nice tools, mostly on the Ethereum ecosystem that support DAOs. And here I've given a list of like some of those tools that I found quite useful and are out there. I've also like opened them here, so I'm gonna quickly go through so that if anyone who is watching this is interested, can then go and use some of them. And these are like discussion points from the references that we read, and how those tools address those problems. And it seems like, which is a really, really nice thing, through partnership with projects like these projects like these, a lot of problems could be resolved. It's not just using the partnerships as basically getting ready-made tool. That's not the only benefit. Having a partner in a project like this, I think is quite important, because it expands your like user base, your like marketing space, and most of all, you spread your idea and hopefully attract more people who want to build with you. So yeah, we're also really positive and welcoming any partnership ideas. So please message us in Discord if you want to. And yeah, so below is a like list of some of the references. I definitely recommend the Uniswap decentralization one and the MakerDAO research paper. I personally found these two really interesting, especially the MakerDAO one. This is an actual research paper, so it's a bit longer, but it was quite interesting. And yeah, so from these plus a few more references, we have extracted those like main points that we thought were common across the papers. So I'm gonna start with the first one, which is again, I just wanted to say these were DAOs that were very big in size, and it looks like from things that we read, because our first research attempt was on DAOs that were more as smaller grants rather than massive projects. And it seems in the research that there's a crossover point where the problems of the DAOs become very different. So being a big DAO has a much different problems to solve compared to a smaller one. But yeah, so hopefully, yeah, that gave us more insight into hopefully what's coming. And yeah, so the first one was on measuring the activity of the users. So that was, we read that on like quite a few of the papers. There are quite a few papers out there on like the struggles with this. It kind of also comes together with possibly like creating the right incentives and having a clear structure in the DAO. So the problem is when there are a lot of users, it's very difficult to keep track on what's happening. And even in a company where there's usually like a big hierarchical structure where there are like line managers and so on, it could be unfair in those circumstances many times, but also there is more there's more structure of the accountability of who has done what. Whilst in DAOs, depending on how quickly the DAO has grown, sometimes there might be frustration with some people who, for example, didn't get paid or are waiting on payments, or some people who, for example, have one of the researchers actually says that there's a correlation between productivity and when like how often you get paid on the proposal. So it's definitely advisable to have milestones and don't pay immediately like the team for work that hasn't been finished just because their productivity is said to decrease. Obviously depends on the project, but at the same time not many people could afford to wait for a payment for too long, so there is a balance there as well. But with the activity of voters as well is quite a difficult thing to measure, and the quality of that voting. With the wrong incentives, it could be that you arrive as a very active user that votes regardless of the outcome, just so that they have high activity. So there are now tools out there that can help you like try and quantify like credibility of the voters and how much they have actually voted, and so on. So for the first one, for example, was dApp. This was found by my colleague Javier, and this is actually an example for Uniswap, but for me to actually access more information, I have to be on one of the plans, and I think they charge 25 per month for a standard and like quite a bit more for a pro to be able to access the data that I said. But you still can see quite a lot just from like the base free excuse me, free plan. Yeah, so you would be able to get activity of the different users and quite a lot of information of like the healthiness of the DAO as well. I think they also do financials, and like you can see the treasury and how decentralized the platform is, and yeah, so on and so on. So that's a very cool project. Yeah, and sorry. Then all of these like Parcel, Gilded, Utopia Labs are projects that help with the financials of the DAOs. As I said, there's actually a lot of frustration with like agreeing on a proposal and the proposal passing through and then nothing actually happening. So, for example, a proposal was agreed that someone will be paid, but the payment didn't actually happen because there was no consistent admin way to do that. So these projects are great for that. So, for example, Parcel, like it gives you options to budget per team as well. That we're gonna talk about in a bit, but yeah, so you can form like salaries and ongoings, ingoings, see all of the financials of the DAO, and so on and so on. It's the same for Gilded and Utopia. It helps you automate all of these tasks that are obviously in a Web2 system have been a given because have been developed for so many years. But it's nice to see that you can get that in Web3 now as well, and create a really nice DAO that has all of these roles automated. And now that we're onto roles, another big problem seems to be the a lack of clarity when it comes to roles, especially on the transition stage of a small DAO to big DAO. It seems like there are people who usually from the core team that would support the project and would have at least 2 or 3 different roles within that project. So like they will help with legal, with admin, and they're actually like a developer. So distinctions of roles when the project gets bigger is quite important. And for that, there was a suggestion, I think it was from Uniswap, no, it was from MakerDAO, about communication channels. So they found it really convenient to have different Discord channels on governance and on different topics in governance. For example, tech governance and then legal governance, and again have one general channel that you can discuss general topics, but have that separation so that people who want to only take part in one area can do that without being confused. And so another research that was linked, that is linked down below, shows that they basically asked DAO people who work for DAOs for like some time now what makes them stay in a specific DAO, because that's another big problem, that they just leave depending on incentive system. If there is another DAO that pays more, if there isn't a core community that would make those developers or those users stay, then they will just leave for another one that has higher incentive. And they said that the thing that determines the most for them to stay is a project that has clear culture and a nice community. So having that, like those Discord channels, those forums, Slack, and like peer-to-peer interaction in the project actually turns out to be very, very important. Yeah, and in terms of team separation, as I said, very important to have different teams when the project is bigger. And there is Block Apex, I've just linked them, is like just for like audit and token design tool. And last topic is on like minimize of governance. Actually just remembered, I forgot to link that paper, but it's from Vitalik, and it's on the topic of like minimizing governance and what should be updatable, and don't make everything updatable if it doesn't need to be. So he was basically criticizing that projects control, like teams control the projects for way too long because they're scared of some specific update, and they might be better development design of the project that protects against this, rather than just using like quorum percentages and so on. And another sorry, last thing was the delegated votes. I just wanted to say a few words on that. Yeah, so delegate votes was also discussed on quite a few of the DAOs, and it is a great idea. It's basically it is also connected to having like someone who has a history of like really good work in some area, who you know and trust, to be able to have a really good decision on a proposal. You should be able to delegate your vote on that, and then and depending on the DAO, again, there are some who would take the that delegated vote with like a smaller proportion, or you would be able to like delegate only half of your votes, and so on and so on. There are different iterations on that as well, but that's linked in the references too. I'm just gonna add the Vitalik paper reference because I forgot to link it earlier. And yeah, I think that's from this for now. We're also working on a paper that hopefully we're gonna present to you in the new year. And we have a like a small CAD simulation. CAD is a computer-aided design for that uses the Vectis growth function that we talked about in the previous call. And we can do another community call on that as well in the new year. So yeah, looking forward to that. That was from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the massive works, and look forward to check the paper soon. And so thank you, everyone. Enjoy the holiday and see you next year.
Thank you.